Welcome everyone. Just got a couple of people just finding seats, but there are still a few and there's a couple of rows down here. I think everyone has met me a number of times. Kirsten Ferdinands is my name. I have the absolute privilege of being the Executive Principal at Brisbane South State Secondary College. And tonight I want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners, the Turrbal people, and paying my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So as I said, welcome everyone, and welcome to what is our first parent engagement evening, specifically to support your children in learning. And part of that is about how we view our parents and our guardians as partners in the learning journey. And particularly in our learning journey, and as the new standard, we talk about challenging conventions, a lot of how we're doing our learning and the way in which we are leveraging learning is through the use of digital technologies. And tonight it's about understanding how and why we are doing what we're doing, and equally to engaging with your children around how they're currently doing it and how they're using that tool to support their learning, but equally to support the engagement across all of the curriculum. So tonight, 3 aspects. We're going to hear firstly from a great team around leveraging digital and the finer parts in what we're doing. Then you're going to go for a learning walk through classrooms where some of the key staff who are sitting up the back are going to be with your children, leading that as well, and then coming back in for a final session before we finish up at around 7:45. So I just want to thank you all for taking time out of what I know is normally in people's lives a huge term and a huge week. And when the nights aren't getting any warmer and the sun's not staying out any longer, I do appreciate it, and I know this investment is certainly an investment in your child's life, education and their future. So thank you for taking the time to be with us. I would now like to hand over to Tamara Sullivan, one of our Deputy Principals, to lead the first session. Thank you.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Leveraging Digital. We thought we'd start tonight's session by delving in a little bit deeper as to who are your children, who are our students, because they are very different from any previous generation that we've seen before. So, who are you? You would be, and most of you would be, in what's known as the Generation X or the Generation Y. For many of you, you might have had the iconic toy of the Rubik's Cube or maybe a BMX bike. How did you listen to music? Well, many of you would have listened to music through a Walkman or maybe even an iPod. And some of you might have even used some of the sayings at the top. I was too young to actually remember the stock market crash, but I do remember September 11 very, very well. For our students, they've grown up in a very different generation. And so I thought I'd show you a quick clip of Ellen talking about that.
So, okay, I don't have a lot of time, but just one quick thing. I got a delivery on my doorstep the other day, and you know what it was? A phone book. What a waste of paper that is. Why are we still making phone books? Oh, I see confusion on the younger people's faces. Is it a book about phones, Ellen? What is it? Let me explain what a phone book is. Years ago, when we didn't have the internet to search for a phone number or address or cute videos of dogs that say, "Rah-rah-roo," we had something called a phone book. And maybe you were at home and you needed to look up somebody, or maybe you were at a payphone and you needed to get somebody's, uh-oh, I see more confusion. A payphone was this thing that came before cell phones, and if you were out and you needed to make a call, you'd use a payphone, and you'd put a coin in the slot, and you'd call your mom and say, "Hey, pick me up at the bookstore." Oh, no. All right. Bookstores were... Before we had Kindles and iPads, there were actual books, and they were bound together, and you would turn pages, and you'd go to stores specifically to buy these books, and they were called bookstores, and that's how you would buy a book. Or if you didn't want to buy one, you could borrow one from the library. Oh, dear. Libraries were big buildings full of these books, and you would search through rows and rows of them, and then you would find the book that you wanted, and you would take it home and read it, for a few days. And then you'd forget to return it, and you'd go to a different library because you didn't want to pay the late fee, like a video store. I don't know how to stop. Video stores, before Netflix, if you wanted to watch a movie, you would go home and you would go to the video store, and they were like libraries. But instead of books, you would find movies, and then you would take one home and pop it into your VCR. Someone help me. A VCR was like a Blu-ray player. But instead of a disc, it was a cartridge. And after you watched it, you'd actually have to rewind the entire movie. Like an audio cassette. This may never end. An audio cassette was what we listened to before we had MP3s. All cars had cassette players, and you would just pop in your cassette tape of Milli Vanilli. Milli Vanilli was... They were in the late 80s. They were like a R&B duo that got in trouble for lip syncing. It wasn't a game show back then. It was frowned upon. It's not frowned upon here, though.
Okay, so we can see within our generation how much the technology has really infiltrated our life. For many of us in the Generation X and the Generation Y era meant that the technology really wasn't a big part of our childhood. For many of us, the technology we started to use that later on in our teens, or for some of us in our early 20s. But it's very different for the generation of your children. So who are they? They're known as Generation Alpha, and they're born around 2010. For many of them, they also sit on the brink there of the Generation Z. They're called Generation Alpha because we ran out of letters in our alphabet, number one. But two, rather than starting back at Generation A, they represent a completely new generation. So they've called them from the Greek alphabet. And something very different about them is that than any other previous generation was that they were actually born into the technology. So the first iPad and also Instagram was actually released in 2010. So they've known really nothing else but this digital technology. And what it means is that they'll be moving into their adulthood by the end of 2020. So for us as an educational institution, if we not only want to exist in a decade's time, but also to thrive and flourish, then we really need to understand the type of learners that are in front of us today. And we do know what happens when we fail to innovate. And if you have a look at some of those organisations up on the screen, because they failed to innovate, you think about Kodak, you think about the Blockbuster stores, you even think about the taxi industry and the impact that Uber has had, and also the BlackBerry, and they had the market there. But unfortunately, they failed to innovate, and then Apple overtook them. So for us, we always need to make sure that we're looking ahead to that future. Who are our learners, and how might it be that the type of workforce that they're actually going into? For Generation Alpha, social media, as you would know, is actually integral to their development, and we call them tweens. And the tweens really mean that they sit between childhood and also adolescence. That YouTube is where they find their information. And in our generation, it might have been Google, we'd look something up and we'd read about it, but this generation is actually, the statistics is actually showing that they are on YouTube in order to find their information. So they're very visual learners. We know that they love gaming, they love those online social interactions. They're also called the up ages, and what that means is that they have more access to technology than any generation before, that they have more access to information, and technology is always influencing everything that they're doing. The up ages, we know that their physical maturity is now setting in a lot earlier, and in addition to the social and the physiological, the educational and the commercial sophistication. Bad news for you parents is that adolescence is actually beginning earlier, but it's also extending a lot later. And what that means is that our students, Generation Alpha, they're actually marrying later, that they're staying in formal education a lot longer, they're having children a lot later. And unfortunately for you, they're also known as the kids in parents' pockets eroding retirement savings. And what that means is that the research is showing us that they're actually not moving out of home until their late 20s. So you're stuck with them for a while. In terms of when we start to look at the innovations that have occurred in their lifetime compared to ours, and if you have a look at something like a credit card or a wallet, this generation will probably never use a credit card or have a wallet because they were born into this generation here. And really, it was the start of the iPad. And when we think about even where the technology is going, think about this of a driverless car, and that's predicted to become something that's widely used in 2022. But it's actually already happening in the States. And I'll just show you this news report.
Looks like this is our ride.
It's hard to describe what it's like when you hail a car
See us?
and it pulls up with no one behind.
Heading to Costco Halls.
And along with it, what Waymo hopes is a pandemic selling point.
It's just me and the steering wheel here.
Not having to get into a car with a stranger. To accelerate confidence, increased sanitizing. Waymo is spraying, wiping, and after every ride, flushing their vehicles clean.
Within a few minutes, we actually recirculate over 99% of the air, and so that it's fresh and ready for the next rider.
And this isn't just some testable driver.
These aren't exactly your typical soccer mom vans here.
No, you may have noticed they have some sensors that you don't see every day out on the roads.
Those sensors are the eyes of what Waymo calls the Waymo Driver, a computer that uses 19 cameras, LiDAR, and radar to see what's happening 360 degrees around the car and up to 3 football fields away.
Wow. It flagged a person that's way over there.
It's always paying attention day and night, 360 degrees. It's never drunk, it's never tired, it's never texting.
This is an experience, and it requires a little bit of trust.
Which might be one of the biggest speed bumps Waymo faces. AAA's annual automated vehicle survey found only 14% of drivers would trust riding in a car that drives itself, with a larger number saying COVID would not influence their decision. But Waymo says this is all the culmination of over 20 billion miles of testing, saying computer simulations consistently show their cars making more life-saving maneuvers than human drivers.
Kind of the pickup.
And Chandler's mayor, whose city has acted as Waymo's test track for almost 4 years, is on board.
So just stop it there. Put up your hand if you'd be willing to get into a driverless car. I don't know if I would be. But that is where the technology is going, and this is going to be a big part of their lives. In terms of their future and in terms of what we do in education, well, we know that there has been this massive shift in educational engagement from that structural and auditory of how maybe we learned as Generation X and Generation Y to the visual, to the multimodal and the hands-on. It's because they also have access to more information. And the research is also showing us that Generation Alpha, 1 out of 2, will go on to obtain a university degree. What it also means is that they are very, very mobile. Now, what is actually occurring is that a person is spending the average time in a work role of only being now 3 years. So if we now predict what that looks like in the future, it means this generation may have 18 jobs over 6 distinct careers. So now we have to start thinking about, well, what is going to be the skill set and what is going to be the mindset that is going to better reflect work in society. And 65% of our primary age students are going to be working in jobs that don't even exist. If we project forward to what the statistics are showing us in the year 2030, and this is the billions of hours of more work that will be required across the economy, if we have a look at some of these skills that are the highest, it's about critical thinking, it's about this problem solving, it's about interpersonal skills, it's about the verbal communication, and that's what we call our global competencies. But if you have a look at these skills here, it's actually reducing in the number of hours, and that is because of automation. And so things such as organisational skills, management, and even teaching is being reduced. But certainly the learning is going up, because we know that if they're going into 18 different jobs across 6 distinct careers, they're always going to have to continue to reskill and learn on the job. Generation Alpha, the research is showing us, is very values driven. So it means that they want to go into jobs that have a purpose and meaning in their work, that their work is going to align to their core values, a workplace that has a community of strong social connections, and also really having that positive impact on the world. And now what the research is showing us, that workers are actually leaving their jobs to take less pay, but to work in an organisation that has meaning and purpose for them and having that positive impact on the world. So for us, this one here, our students, Generation Alpha, are also going into what's called a gig economy. And the gig economy is where they're taking short-term contracts. So think about Uber, think about Airbnb. And this is actually now on the rise, particularly with COVID-19 and what's actually occurred across the world. So for us at Brisbane South, we really focus in on our learning, and this is our learning framework. And while, again, we acknowledge that knowledge is very important, equally important are these global competencies. In addition to that, when we know that our generation is very values-driven, for us, it's really about developing their self-understanding. Who are they as a person? And also how they're going to contribute back. In order to do this, we focus in on 4 distinct pillars. One, you'd be very well aware that we have this very unique learning environment, and we have lots of spaces there for them in order to be able to develop those competencies, to develop their self-understanding and their connection. In addition to that, we focus in on partnerships, and you would know that we have very strong collaboration there with the University of Queensland. But equally as important is you as learning partners in this journey. And you know, it is about us leveraging digital, and how can we use the technology to not drive the learning, but rather accelerate the learning. So I'm now going to hand over to Miss Riley, who is going to be talking through how do we go about using our digital systems as an ecosystem. Thank you.
Good evening, parents and students. I'm really excited to be here tonight to talk to you about our digital ecosystem that we've constructed at the college. We've created this ecosystem to really benefit our students in not only their schooling life here, but also their post-secondary schooling lives, whether that be moving on to tertiary education or into the workforce. Tonight we're exploring a few different platforms here at the college within the lectorial, and then you'll also be moving off to have a look at some more platforms that we use. Tonight I'll be speaking about Daymap and also having a look at one of our platforms in our Office 365 suite, Teams, and Georgia will be exploring OneNote. So let's get started by looking at Daymap. Right now, students, if you have brought along your device, I would like you to get it out, log on, get it to Daymap, to your screen, your homepage, and then I want you to put it in front of your parent, because you are going to act as a guide on the side. I'm going to give you 20 seconds to do this. If you didn't bring along your device, students, I will be still showing everyone what you will be looking at, so no one will be disadvantaged tonight regarding that. So So this is the page that you should be sitting on, which is your home page on DayMap. And this is a student view. So I'm going to talk through the different functionalities of DayMap for students before moving on to just a quick discussion about our parent portal. Before I show you the different aspects, your students may look a little bit different. So I have an example here of one of the great features of DayMap is that students can personalise the view to help them in staying organised. I know that students choose to change things like colours in order to assist them in staying organised about which level they're on or which teacher they have, as they have some teachers for more than one subject. So that's another great feature of DayMap. Having a look at our homepage, we're going to have a look at 3 very specific functions. The first one, down in our bottom corner down here, is our school notices. So school notices are posted by any staff member of the school, and parents, you would receive versions of these. Every morning in our learnerpreneur classes, our students access these notices. They're also able to access them at any point from their device, so before school, after school, and at any time during the day. If they click on a notice, so parents, can you please click on any school notice that sits in this box down here? It will bring up for you the full notice itself. We're very lucky as we're also able to put attachments to these notices, so things like forms or documents can be put there for students to access. All right, if you click the X for that, and if you head back to, that will take you back to the home page, we're going to have a look at current tasks. Can you please click on any of the current tasks that are there? That should take you to a screen that looks similar to the one behind me. So this is an example of where our students can access their assessment tasks and see the context behind their tasks, so what is required of them, and also access their task sheets. Another great feature is that our due dates are on there. So you can see right there we have a due date listed for students to also stay organised and ensure that they are on track working towards their assessment. If you can just click the X for me, parents, and head back to the home page, we're going to have a look at the final function of DayMap that I'm exploring tonight. And that is additional information about classes. So what I would like you to do is find an English or a humanities class and click on that box on their timetable. That will take you to a page where they can see a list of their tasks in completion there, and they can also click through and find other resources that have been posted to DayMap. So this is a great way for students to keep track of which tasks are coming up in specific subjects to stay organised. Whilst I'm speaking about DayMap, we're done with the student section, so thank you students, I hope you helped your parents through that as the guide on the side. I'd also like to remind our parents of our parent portal. So this is an example of what the parent portal looks like for our parents and carers. On here you can see you have access to your child's daily attendance. You have notices from the school there as well, so we post parent notices. This is also, you can access things like forms that are posted through there. And we also have a school calendar so that you can see events that are coming up. At the beginning of this term, so for the term 1 marks were released through DayMap, so this was also how you access those. So just a reminder, if you're unsure how to access this, please speak to me at the end of this session. I'd now like to move across to Microsoft Teams, as this is to do with the learning in the classroom, not just the organisation. So students, can you please open up your Microsoft Teams and just head to your team page? That page should, oh no, okay, I'm not going to scroll down yet. My apologies. If you can head there and just give me a moment to talk about why as a school we're using Teams and the impact that that has on your futures. I'll give you 10 seconds. A lot of research has come out about teams recently. As we know, in this current state of the world, COVID-19 has changed the ways that workplaces operate. And we've moved to both a remote and on-campus or a hybrid system of working. Teams has been quite an influential platform for workplaces to use. And some statistics that I found quite surprising was the fact that from April last year through to April this year, the number of daily active users almost doubled, from 75 million to 145 million. That is an astounding statistic, and so through our students using this particular platform at school, we're helping to prepare them for that workplace beyond their education. They'll already be quite adept at using the program and interacting with many of its features. And I'm going to speak to you about those features now. This is our team's kind of homepage. So if students click on this button on the side, that should take them to all of their teams, which are presented as tiles. This is where they can see their different subjects. If they are to click on any one of their teams, so student, can you please select a team and click on it, or have your parents selected? It will take them to the team page. These team pages are for each subject, and so the students in each subject and the teacher of that subject have access to this team. On the side over here on the left are all of the channels. So we have channels for things like general administration, homework, questions and answers, and we also have channels for each unit of work which takes place over each term. In the centre here is our conversation area. This has been a learning curve for our students. They are allowed to make posts on this conversation area, however they are not able to edit or delete those posts. So we've been talking to them about their digital footprint and what it means to interact with digital systems when information can't be erased. Teachers use this space for all kinds of things. We can gather student voice through this space to engage with our students as learning partners. We can post reminders, students can post questions and we can answer them. And it's become a great way for us to collaborate online using a platform. If you click on the files up the top, it takes you to all of the files within that unit. Now, this is really important to note that students, a good reminder is that these are the files within that particular unit or channel. So each channel will have its own file section. This is also up the top, you'll also see class notebook, and Georgia or Miss Rowe will be going through this in a moment as that notebook is attached to that particular team. Our students' assignments are also on Teams. So can you please click on the assignments on the left-hand side? This should take you to a screen with assignments that have been completed and assignments still to be submitted. We have moved to using Teams for all submissions of all assessment pieces or all assignments to ensure that students are able to use this system, and also because there's a great function where the pages that we load and the pages they interact with are saved through Teams, so that at any point they can get point or moment in time feedback around that work. Our teachers are able to access their drafts on an ongoing basis. If you click on any of the assignments, even one that's been submitted, it will take you to a page that looks like this. And parents, I encourage you to have a look at your students' assignments and what's expected of them. So in here, they have task sheets that are attached that they can open and have a read through. So if you're interested in the specifics, the criteria sheets, the conditions around assessment, this is a great place to have a look. In here, this is where the students' work is held. So the students will actually work within Teams on their assignments. And over on the side, the rubric is sitting there where teachers can actually mark against that rubric for their final assessment piece and within drafting. If you click on any of the My Work spaces on this page, it will take you and open up the actual work itself. So in this case, this is a microbit coding assignment, and the students can work in this space on their assessment. I do find that very exciting because it means that, number one, we're not having work lost on USBs or it's on my computer at home. It's all there and it cannot be lost through that. So I find that exciting coming from a school with limited technology. Finally, if you click on the file bar on the left-hand side, this brings up all of the files associated with the teams that they're in and their own files. The great thing is these files are stored in the cloud, and so this means that they have access to them anywhere that they have an internet connection. I would now like to hand over to Georgia Rowe, our Head of Inclusive Practices, to speak about OneNote.
Thank you very much, Nikki, or Mrs. Riley. And welcome parents and students. If you've just entered and you have your laptop, I suggest you open it up because we're going to look at one of our interactive platforms that our kids use every single day. So, you've heard a lot about Generation Alpha, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about one of their other names. So, we have here the Alphas, Generation Glass, so the generation that looks at glass, and of course the Multimodals. And I want to break that down for you a little bit. Multimodal is a common term that you might have heard of and is actually an adjective. And what it means is that it's the use of one or more mode for an activity, occurrence, or communication. What's actually happened, like our generations, language changes over time. And what's happened to this word is it's actually become a noun, so it's been nominalised. And what that means is it's a term used to talk about people who use more than one mode of communication at once. So part of Microsoft's design, and especially for OneNote, has been around understanding and connecting this aspect of our new generation within a platform. So Microsoft focus on technology that is designed to deliver an increased access for all, a reduced amount of friction, so less struggles or less issues, and more emotional context for more people. So where we once had, where we might have once had access to platforms like Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, publication, where they focused on one format of communication, like Microsoft Word is for writing, and Microsoft PowerPoint is for presenting. We now have OneNote, which is where you can access all of those modes of communication in OneNote. So where we might be traditionally communicating with one mode, like writing, reading, listening, speaking, our students are adept and apt to using more than one mode of communication at once and in combination with each other. So what this technology focuses on, and why we've looked at using that and why our kids are interacting with it every day, is because it's not about changing technology to adapt to every single individual student, but it's actually about making sure that our individuals are aware and have the choice in how to use the technology to their advantage. And that's what Microsoft OneNote does for us. So, students, you're going to continue to be the guide on the side. I need you to go to one of your OneNotes, one of your class OneNotes, maybe your English and Humanities OneNote, Humlish, and I want you to open up to your OneNote. So I'm going to give you a moment to do that, and then look me in the eyes when you're ready. So OneNote, Class OneNote, is organised into 4 main sections. You have the quick access section, which is where information is stored and accessed quickly. We also have our collaboration space, which is here, our content library, which is here, and then there is the student OneNote. Now I'm looking at the teacher view, where I can actually access every single student's OneNote real time as they're working on it and operating in it. So I've blocked that out for you so you can't see who's in my class. The first part of that OneNote, and probably the thing that excites me the most, is the collaboration spaces. So this is a screenshot of one of my classes where students collaborate and share their learning in real time. So we can actually pull this up and kids can work on it interactively and we can see this. So in this particular example, you can see here different pages. These pages are group work that students have done and then shared, which all of our students can then access to then increase their own learning opportunities as well. So that's the collaboration space. We then have the content library. So this is where students can access the lesson content or pages and move those sections, so these sections here, into their OneNote, where they then get to save that, edit that, and store that. And as a teacher, I can then go in and access that. So what I'd like you to do now, students, is help your parents or guardians find a page and show them how you can copy that into your own OneNote. And this is something that is a part of everyday life for us here at the college. Our students do this in every single lesson almost, and are adept at using this tool. Fabulous. So what I can also show you down here is a teacher-only version that your teachers have, which also has a store and a bank of resources that we can then also upload into our content library if we need to. I love all the chatter, you sound so excited. One part that you may have seen is then our student notebook. So every single student has their own OneNote attached to their login for every single class, which is formulated through Teams, which Miss Riley just went through with us. So students can choose the way that they want to demonstrate their learning in their own OneNote. So what I actually have here on the screen is 4 student examples of the exact same activity, which is titled Freedom, which is a retrieval activity to find out what the kids knew. And as you can see, in all 4 examples, every single student has demonstrated what they know in a generally multimodal capacity and in a way that's unique to them and how they learn. So what students are actually doing is leveraging the technology by understanding what choices they have and how they can use that to their advantage. So students, you might want to show your best and greatest OneNote page to your parents. I know we've all got one. Maybe the sketchnoting page. So that's the basic organisation. What you also have is those multimodal tools, and I'm just going to run through a few of these with you. The very first one is Dictate. This is otherwise known as voice to text. This is actually a way that students can get for themselves immediate feedback on what's happening and what they're saying and what that looks like. They can note take a discussion, a collaborative conversation they're having with their peers or their teacher, and they're able to really quickly articulate ideas. So how many kids in this room sometimes have all they know up in their head, but they just can't get it down on the paper? I know I am sometimes like that. Hear me talk. Fabulous. So Dictate can be found under the home icon, and it's this little icon down here. So what that actually does is when you click on it, you actually are able to copy down. It actually records what you're saying and turns that into text. So I'm going to do that for you now. Oh, can't do it while you're presenting. That's okay, students. Give it a go on your computers. Click on the Dictate function and give it a go. I'll give you a few moments there to voice a sentence. Maybe technology is cool. Miss Rowe is cool. I love Brisbane South State Secondary College. So I recommend you guys have a play around with that function at home as well. Another multimodal tool within OneNote is the audio record function. So again, this is another tool that allows your students to receive immediate feedback and playback. You can record a discussion, you could again articulate your ideas quickly, or you could use it to annotate immediately. So this is under Insert, And then it's this little function here. It looks similar to your dictate function, but it actually holds an audio file in the OneNote that I can come back to, or the student can come back to listen to what's happening. So they can use that. So if you're having a conversation with your teacher, we conference a lot, that can be recorded that then kids can come back to and immediately play back. So if you have some time, students, click on that function. Again, see if you can record a Miss Rowe is awesome. I love going to school. Every day counts. Give it a go. I'll give you 10 seconds. If you're in English and Humanities and you're in 7F, I'll go and check it later. Now, one of our last functions, but certainly not the least, which is my favourite, is something called Immersive Reader. And it does exactly that. It immerses the student or the person using it in the reading. You can actually customise your reading experience. You can use Translate. So you can, if you speak another language or if you're interested in learning another language, you can immediately translate written text. It can help you clarify and decode vocabulary. It helps you identify parts of speech, so those beautiful things we call grammar. And it helps you understand and build fluency by having it read aloud back to you. So to do this, so it's held under View, and you can see this little button because this Immersive Reader is actually so phenomenal that it's actually accessible through a lot of the Microsoft tools. So it's actually on Microsoft Edge. And kids can actually use it when they're on the internet as well. So I'm going to take you to a quick demonstration. Oh, where's my mouse? There's no question time yet, Mia? So here I have some text that I've added into a separate page of my OneNote. This is the parent letter that you would have received in order to register for our event. And I want to have this read aloud to me. So I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to click on Immersive Reader. This is going to take a moment to load, but what it's going to do is it's going to take what's on my page and it's going to pull it up with some settings that Ms. Sullivan might have set on her computer. So what you can see here is it's taken the text that was on that page and it's superimposed it into a different format. You can actually just play it so you can listen to it be read aloud.
Picture on page, generation alpha.
But then you can go way further than that and customise your settings. So you can change the speed at which this is read to you. I use this sometimes when I want to read like articles and stuff. You can make it go really fast. I promise I slow down to half speed for presentations. You can also choose the voice, so you can do female or male. But there's also heaps more. You can customise your text preferences. So you can change the line spacing. You can change the size of the text, the font of the text, the colour of the background. So this is all with the aim of, again, helping the student or the person using the technology customise it and leverage it for their purposes. There's also the grammar options, so you can break it down into syllables. You can have those specific parts of speech. So this is phenomenal for students when we're talking about self-directed learners. When our teacher gives us feedback about grammar and verbs and adverbs, they can go in and use this to really see what they're talking about. You then have some reading preferences. So you can have a few line focus when it's read, a single line focus when it's read. And you can also turn on Picture Dictionary, where if you click on a word, there is often a decodable image attached to it. So that's that multimodal as well. And you can have that word read out individually. The last function I'll show you here, and I'd recommend students, if you're not already, customising this for yourself, is you can use Translate. So if I would like my document to be read aloud in Thai, I could translate the entire document. So it does take a bit of time, but then it actually comes through in that language. Now this is amazing because we have a very diverse community and some of our parents speak different languages at home. So this function can actually be used on a lot of the forms that we send home. And the way to know whether or not that you can use this is by clicking on the 3 dots and enabling Immersive Reader. This function then appears like this, and it can be used on our information sheets that go home. This can also be used on Microsoft Edge if you have that on your computers. So that's the whiz bang of Immersive Reader. And finally, I've showed you the translation tool within Immersive Reader, but you can also access this just as normal on OneNote to translate a OneNote page and translate individual words. Our last amazing function, which our students use in maths, and I'd like you to go to a page of this now, students, if you can, is the maths and replay function. Students use their styluses as well as their keyboard to complete maths equations, and then they translate into a written equation. It actually gives immediate feedback around what's actually going on in that maths equation, where their thinking's at, and they can also use replay, and teachers can use this to look at how students got to their answer, or maybe go back and reflect on what went wrong. So that was a very quick rundown on some of the amazing multimodal features of OneNote, and I'd like to pass back over to Mrs. Sullivan to finish us up.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. Very enthusiastic presentation. On that note, parents, if you are looking at a device that is missing a stylus or has a crack in the screen, we are asking, because we've done the checks and measures on the devices, to please get them repaired as soon as possible. We do rely on it as part of when we set up our BYOD program at ensuring that our students do have a stylus, because handwriting, and we know that many of our subject areas use a different language. So as an example, in maths, in science, and it's really vitally important that they have their stylus. So just before we go to the learning walk, I thought we'd finish with this. Each of us here represent a different generation. So I represent Generation X, Miss Riley Generation Y, and Miss Rowe Generation Z. And for our students, it is about that Generation Alpha. And for us here at the college, we each bring together different experiences. And for us, it is about how can we go about leveraging our technology. Oh dear. No, this is the best part. No, wait, what did you do to my computer? Oh, well, that was a bit of a letdown. Because you do know that we like to put it all in our, oh, hang on, it's coming, in our visuals. And really it is about us working together, bringing in our different experiences so that we're really catering for our students' needs. And if it loads up, and look, I'll wait till you do your learning work and I will show you that we do have all of our students in there that represent Generation Alpha. Oh, here it is, it's coming. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to go up to level 6. And on level 6, for the next 30 minutes, if we can be back down in the lecture theatre by 20 past 7:20, that you're going to go on a bit of a learning walk and have a look at how the technology is being used in our different subject areas. So back here by 7:20. Thank you.